I've had this channel for 12 years now, and as a small creator on this platform, I know how hard it is to make original content and have it stand out among the masses. One look at my videos and you'll see that I have a variety of songs that I've covered. Some that so many guitarists and other musicians have covered, and some that don't have the same amount of traction. Hell, if you actually look at two of my commentary videos, you'll see that they're actually on topics that other commentators have talked about. But one thing I will never do is steal somebody else's video and pass it off as my own. And that's what I'm talking about today. Last night I came across a relatively small channel called Archiba, and his video, Attack on Titan, What If Gabby Didn't Shoot Eren? And I thought to myself that something about this seemed familiar. Well, it turns out that I was right, because not even 30 seconds in, I knew that I'd seen this video before. 5 months ago. See, this channel called Jaegerist released a video titled What If Gabby Didn't Shoot Eren's Head 3 months prior to Archiba's. Now, while I know that it's 100% possible for different channels to talk about the same or similar topics, the parallels between both videos are damn near identical. From the subject matter and script to the examples used and even the video description. Even the thumbnails are almost the same. And if you notice, the timestamps are a minute apart. And the reason for that is because he cut out certain information that Jaegerist used to try and camouflage that he completely ripped off their video. And a quick YouTube search shows that these are the only two videos really talking about this topic and the other theories presented in both videos. Here's how Jaegerist videos start.
Did you ever wonder what would happen if Gabby didn't shoot Eren? Or what if this guy ate Eren and inherited his Titan powers? Or even better, could the real-life modern military stop the rumbling? Well, I spent a long time researching these topics, and here's exactly what would happen.
And here's how his video starts.
Ever wondered what would happen if Gabby didn't shoot Eren? Or what would have happened if the bearded Titan ate Eren whole and obtained his Titan powers? Well, we'll be looking at the most likely answers to these questions, including the question if the modern-day military would have been able to stop the rumbling. So, in today's video, let's find out the most likely outcomes of each scenario.
What are the chances that he's talking about the exact same 4 topics and scenarios that they are? I mean, his script is almost identical to theirs, from Eren's founding Titan form and how the Survey Corps could go about defeating him.
Did it ever seem weird to you that Eren's founding Titan looks like this? It's literally just a bunch of bones and looks nothing similar to the previous founding Titans in the series. Well, what if I tell you that the one responsible for this was none other than Gabby? Although she didn't kill Eren when she shot him, she managed to split his body and head, and later when Eren transformed, you can clearly see here that the bones grew out from his head. This means that if Gabby didn't shoot him before he touched Zeke, it's most likely that his entire body would transform and his Titan form would look completely different. Judging by the other founding Titan users throughout the series, his appearance would probably look similar to his attack Titan form with bones protruding from his body, similar to Ymir. He would also be much bigger. I did some research online, and it seems that Eren's current form is at minimum around 600 meters in length. This means that if he wasn't shot and his full body was transformed normally, he would be at least 10 times bigger than the Wall Titans. Another interesting thing is that in this scenario, Eren would be able to defend himself against other Titan shifters and warriors instead of just walking around. Okay, this all sounds pretty cool, but what would happen after he transforms? Well, there are actually many things that would play out differently this time around. For starters, the Alliance couldn't land on top of Eren, as he would now walk normally on 2 legs. Also, Armin's plan to transform and destroy Eren with an explosion would also not work now, as Eren could easily harden his body to avoid any damage. To be honest, I just don't see how this version of Eren could ever be defeated. He would be way overpowered. The only thing the Alliance could do is land on Eren's shoulders and try to break into his nape and pull out his human form. But let's be honest with ourselves. The chances of them pulling off something like this, no pun intended, are really slim. And the only way they could win is if Eren lets them. Meaning if Eren wants to continue the rumbling, he could easily destroy the entire world, and there would be no one capable of stopping him. Man, I guess we should be thanking Gabby for shooting him after all.
First of all, did you ever notice that Eren's founding Titan looks like its bones are coming out and looks nothing like the previous founding Titans of the series? Well, the reason for this might have been the fact that Gabby shot him, which split his body from his head. This action is probably what led to the bones growing out of Eren's head when he finally transformed into a Titan. So, based on this, it means that if Gabby didn't shoot Eren before he touched Zeke, his entire body would have transformed which would make his Titan form completely different from the others. Considering the appearance of the other founding Titans, this also means that his appearance would look a lot more like his Attack Titan form, which is very similar to Ymir. He would also be a lot larger because when you think about the fact that Eren's current form is at minimum at 600 meters, if he wasn't shot and his whole body transformed, he'd be at least 10 times larger than the Wall Titans. At this size, Eren would be able to defend himself from virtually any other Titan shifter or warrior. So now that we know how different his form would have been, let's take a look at how this would affect the storyline as a whole. First of all, the Alliance wouldn't have been able to land on his back because in this form, Eren would be able to walk on 2 legs. Another thing that would be different is that Armin's plan to destroy Eren with an explosion wouldn't work out this time around because he'd just make his outer body extremely harder with his bones. As you can see, this version of Eren would be pretty unstoppable, but there is something the Alliance could do to take him down. They'd probably attempt to land on his shoulders and attempt to bring out his human form, but honestly, the odds wouldn't be in their favor. This means that there would be no one to face this version of Eren if he wanted to continue the rumbling. He would. So it's fair to say that Gabi deserves some appreciation for shooting Eren because they wouldn't know how to face this unstoppable Titan.
2 of today's modern military could potentially defeat the rumbling.
There are still 3 scenarios left to cover, and the last one will blow your mind. Okay, did you ever wonder if the modern real-world military could stop the rumbling? In the show, the combined military of the entire world was completely helpless against the army of Wall Titans. They tried shooting them from the water with ships, from the land with artillery, and even tried throwing bombs on them from planes. However, even after all that, they've only managed to kill a few Titans. Judging by the weapons and the technology in the Attack on Titan world, we can safely say that they probably lived somewhere between the 1910s and the 1920s. Since then, technology has evolved greatly, and we now have much stronger weapons than ever before. So if the rumbling was to happen in the real world, would we be able to defend ourselves? According to fans' calculations, there should be roughly 500,000 colossal Titans in the rumbling. To put this into perspective, let's take one of the largest armies in the world, the US Army. It currently has around 1 million active members. So just imagine half of the US Army is 60 meters tall colossal Titans. Okay, now that you understand just how big the rumbling is, let's see if the world could do anything to stop it. The first important thing is that colossal Titans are pretty fast, and it was stated they move around 65 kilometers per hour. This means that the Army's stationary artillery weapons would be pretty much useless, as the rumbling would catch up within minutes and completely destroy them. A similar thing would also happen with ships, which would also be crushed pretty quickly as they have nowhere to escape. Now, although everything so far would happen pretty much the same as in the anime, I believe the army would be able to kill much more Titans than Marley did. However, even if by some miracle they managed to kill, let's say, 50,000 Titans, it's still pretty much nothing compared to their numbers. So does that mean that even the modern army has no chance against the Titans? Well, not exactly, as the modern army has something they didn't have 100 years ago: nukes. Okay, so just throw a few nukes and that's it, right? Not really. You see, judging by the information I could find, the average blast radius of a nuclear bomb is around 10 kilometers, which means that if the army wanted to cover the entire rumbling with nukes, they would probably need more than 500 nuclear bombs. That would obviously be impossible since it would wipe out the entirety of humanity. However, if you think about it, the world doesn't really have to kill every single Titan to survive. Remember chapter 137? As soon as Levi killed Zeke, the entire rumbling stopped. You probably see where I'm going with this. If the army can throw just one bomb right on Eren's founding Titan, it should be enough to immediately stop the rumbling. I know this is kind of anticlimactic, but considering how the rumbling is activated through Eren and Zeke, this plan should work. So if you ever have a dream like this, don't worry, you should be safe, probably.
Alright, so there are still 3 more topics left in this video, and you wouldn't want to miss number 1. Did you ever wonder if the modern day military would be able to stop the rumbling? In the show, we saw the combined military of the entire world didn't stand a chance against the army of Wall Titans. They tried all forms of attack at their disposal by shooting them from the water with the ships, from the air with the bombs, and even from land using tanks, but they were only able to kill a few. Based on the technology shown in the Attack on Titan world, it's safe to say that it's set around sometime in the early 20th century. However, since then, technology has advanced greatly, so if the rumbling was to happen in the world of today, would humans be able to stop it? To answer that question, we would need to know how many Titans we would be up against, and according to fans' calculations, there are about 500,000 colossal Titans. Now that we have an idea of just how many 60-meter tall Titans we would be facing, let's see what the modern military can bring to the table to tackle such a threat. First of all, stationary weapons like artillery and tanks, maybe even ships, would be pretty useless because the Titans are pretty fast and would close the gap to destroy the weapons pretty quickly. In fact, most things would play out the same way they did in the show, but the military of today would be able to kill a lot more Titans than Marley did. Also, the modern army has something that Marley didn't: nuclear weapons. However, it's not that simple to use such weapons because of their adverse effects, and to make things worse, they'll need at least 500 nukes to wipe out the 500,000 Titans. The use of nukes on such a large scale would instantly destroy the Earth. That's if Earth even has up to that number of nuclear weapons. So with that, the option should not be considered. But what if the army didn't need to kill all the Titans? If you recall chapter 137, when Zeke was killed, the entire rumbling stopped. So based on this, a single nuke on the head of Eren's founding Titan should stop the rumbling, considering that the whole thing started with Zeke and Eren.
Now with those examples, if you do the necessary research, know who to talk to, and think critically and tactfully from a military standpoint, it is possible to potentially come up with the same conclusions. But these next two, there's no way in hell that he just so happened to have the exact same theory and conclusions as Jaeger is, practically word for fucking word.
Before we explain what would happen if Eren inherited the Colossal Titan instead of Armin, let's first explain what would happen if this pure Titan ate Eren properly and inherited his Titan powers. Although the main character dying so early in the show seems really bad, there are actually some really interesting things that would happen in this scenario. Okay, firstly, who even is this guy? Some of you may think that he is just a random Titan, but that's not really true. You see, he was actually one of the main members of Eldian restorationists back in Marley. You can clearly see him in this picture. Okay, now that we know who he is, how will the story progress from there? After eating Eren, he would turn back into his human form, and from there, it's most likely that the Corps would imprison him underground and try to question him. And here comes the first major change. Since this guy is the Eldian restorationist, he would tell the Corps everything about Marley and the outside world. Just imagine them learning all of this in episode 5. It would be game-changing. This also means they would have no reason to go to Shigashina, as all secrets would already be revealed. Another thing they would realize is that both colossal and armored titans must be humans, and that they are probably living among them. Royal family would be really scared by this development, as everyone now knows about them, so it's likely they would just keep hiding and observing the situation. Now that the Survey Corps knows that they live on the island and that there is a limited amount of titans outside, they will probably go out and slowly kill titans one by one, similar to how they did during the time skip. Since the Corps never attempted to go to Shigashina, that also means that they never fought Annie, meaning that all 3 warriors would still be undercover on the island. Eventually, after some time, Zeke and Zeke would arrive and start transforming people into titans, same as in the original story. Everyone, including the new attack titan, would go out there and try to stop them. With Zeke's appearance, it's finally time for warriors to act, and together with Zeke and Peak, they should be able to defeat the new attack titan and the Survey Corps pretty easily. Another thing that'll make the scouts' defeat certain is Ymir, who will make a deal with Marley in order to save Historia. This would literally mean that 6 titans would attack the Corps at the same time, and no matter how good Eren is at strategizing, they would stand absolutely no chance against them. In the end, the warriors would return to Marley victorious, and both the attack and jaw titans would be passed on to the new holders. Marley would soon launch another attack on the island, completely destroying the remnants of the walls. I'm glad this dude didn't eat Eren properly. This would be a disaster.
The next scenario we are covering is what would have happened if the pure bearded titan ate Eren whole and not just his arm. Sure, it would have been sad to see Eren die so early in the show, but it would have led to some really interesting things later on. First, we need to know who the bearded titan is. Contrary to most assumption that he's just a random titan, he was one of the main members of Eldian restorationists who plotted to destroy Marley. Now we know who he is, but how would it affect the story? So, after eating Eren, it's most likely that the Corp would imprison and interrogate him when he's back to his human form. Since the guy is a restorationist, he'd probably tell them everything about Marley and the outside world. This also means that the corpse wouldn't need to go to Shigashina because all the secrets would have already been revealed. These discoveries would include the fact that both armored and colossal titans are humans, so it would leave the royal family quite frightened that such people might be living among them. With such information available to the Survey Corps, they'd probably go out and begin killing the titans one by one. Also, since the corps never went to Shiganshina, it means that they didn't find any Leonhardt, which would result in all three warriors remaining undercover. However, after some time, Zeke and Peak would come out and probably begin transforming people into titans just like in the original story. This would result in everyone at the corps, including the titan who gained Aaron's powers, going out in an attempt to stop Zeke and Peak. Unfortunately, Zeke and Peak, along with their warriors, would win the battle eventually because they'd also have the support of Ymir, who would probably make a deal with Marley to save Historia. Afterward, Marley would soon unleash another attack on the island, demolishing what remains of the walls. With that being said, it's a good thing that Bearded Titan didn't eat Eren completely, because otherwise, it would have been a disaster. Now we know the answer to that question, so let's move on to the next.
And finally, the moment you've all been waiting for, what would happen if Erwin inherited Colossal Titan instead of Armin? And let me tell you, there are some insane things that would happen in this version. Firstly, Erwin would make it to the basement and realize his father was right about everything. On the other hand, Eren would be even more mad and depressed than before, as not only did he learn that there are people outside of the walls, but one of his best friends is also dead. His hatred toward Marley and the outside world would grow even further than before, and he would want to take revenge as soon as possible. After some time had passed, the Survey Corps would clean the island of Titans and start planning their attack on Marley. Everything would play out pretty much the same from here, with Eren going rogue and attacking on his own, with the Survey Corps supporting him. However, the main difference here is that Erwin is much tougher than Armin and is prepared to do whatever is necessary. After blowing up the port, the commander would start walking towards Eren in order to help him in his battle against other warriors. With both Eren and Erwin now fighting, the battle would be much easier, and they would manage to defeat all the warriors. Instead of just leaving, Erwin wouldn't waste this opportunity to try and steal their powers, as it would make it impossible for Marley to launch any sort of counterattack. With this, the raid is a complete success. Eren and Erwin ate all warriors, Zeke sided with them, and even Sasha survived. Although Paradise Island now has all Titans' powers, their safety still isn't guaranteed. The outside world is more terrified of Eldians than ever before, and if nothing is done about them, they will surely retaliate at some point. Knowing Eren's personality and how much he wants to keep his friends safe, he would see the rumbling as the only option for permanent peace. Therefore, as in the original, he would trick Zeke and gain the Founder's power. Thousands of Colossal Titans will start marching toward other nations, and this time, there will be no one willing to stop them. Armin and the warriors are dead in this version, so the only person capable of stopping Eren would be Erwin. But would he? Well, if we reflect on Erwin's character throughout the series, I think it's really unlikely he would try to stop Eren. He is not as naive as some of the other core members, and even though he wouldn't like Eren's plan and consider it extreme, he would let it happen. So, in this scenario, Eren would completely destroy the entire world, leaving no one outside the walls alive. To keep the peace he created, Eren would eradicate the Titan powers from the world so history never repeats itself again.
Finally, to those of you who stuck around, get ready because we are about to find out what would have happened if Erwin had inherited the Colossal Titan powers instead of Armin. Truthfully, the results of this scenario are pretty insane. But before we get into that part, Erwin would probably make it to the basement and realize that his father was right. While Eren would be depressed because he'd find out that there are people outside the wall, his hatred for the outside world and Marley would grow even more because he'd find out that his best friend is dead. As a result, he'd probably go out seeking revenge. Over time, the Survey Corps would kill all the Titans on the island, and most things would be the same as in the original story with Eren going rogue seeking revenge. But in this version, Erwin is a lot stronger than Armin, and so after blowing up the port, Erwin would most likely ask Eren to join him in his battle against other warriors. The two of them team up, and with both of them on the same team, the battle would become a lot easier, and they'd be able to defeat all the warriors. Also, Erwin would make sure to obtain their Titan powers afterward, leaving Marley unable to retaliate. As a result, the raid would be an absolute success because Erwin and Eren would eat all the warriors. Zeke would even partner with them, and Sasha would survive in this version. However, even though the Eldians now have all the Titans' power at their disposal, the outside world would most likely retaliate at some point due to fear of the Eldians. Eren would see the attack coming, so to protect his friends, he'd decide to start the rumbling by tricking Zeke and gaining the founder's power. Since Armin and the other warriors are dead in this version, there would be no one to stop Eren and the rumbling. Based on Erwin's personality, he'd most likely allow Eren to start the rumbling to keep the peace within the walls. In the end, Eren would use the rumbling to destroy the outside world and eventually eradicate the Titan's power from the world to ensure that history isn't repeated.
And this isn't even the only one. A year ago, Jaegerist released a video explaining the 12 Kizuki, or Demon Moons, from Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba. And when you know it, Arakawa released his video on the exact same topic 1 month ago. He only split it in half to hide the fact that he stole their video. And in all honesty, I wouldn't be surprised if all of his videos were actually stolen from other YouTubers. This reminds me of when the YouTuber CZ's World had one of his videos stolen by Screen Rant 3 years ago. It's pretty evident that they ripped off his video practically word for word, especially when Zach points out these examples.
In the meantime, there were some more contemporary references as well. The blanket pulling scene pays homage to The Conjuring, and when Cecilia spreads coffee beans all over the floor to try to catch the Invisible Man's footsteps, it's very reminiscent of Paranormal Activity, where the character Katie spreads flour on the floor to try to record the invisible entity's footsteps.
But there were also plenty of homages to other popular horror films. The Conjuring franchise also features characters haunted by unseen forces, and there are some particularly terrifying moments that take place in bedrooms. In The Invisible Man, there's a scene where Cecilia's blanket is pulled, which is very reminiscent of moments we've seen in The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2.
Wrong, that doesn't happen in The Conjuring 2. Of course, the one teeny tiny moment you say something differently than what I said, you're just wrong about it. Continue.
And this isn't the only horror movie reference we spotted.
Hold on, pause it again. What do you mean we spotted?
What do you mean, we?
Another spooky flick featuring haunted characters is Paranormal Activity. During the first movie, we saw Katie try to track down the spectral being haunting her home by laying flour out on the floor.
Are you kidding me right now? I pointed out similarities to 2 existing horror movies and you bring up the exact same 2. And then, just in case it wasn't clear that you're criminals, you follow it up with this. I think that the director of The Invisible Man, Lee Winnell, put in these connections because he's friends with James Wan, who directed The Conjuring, and Oren Peli, who directed Paranormal Activity. In fact, Winnell's directorial debut was Insidious Chapter 3. Excellent movie, and that film was produced by Wan and Peli.
The fact that director Lee Winnell included nods to The Conjuring and Paranormal Activity definitely were not coincidences. It turns out that Winnell knows Oren Peli, the director of Paranormal Activity, as well as James Wan, who directed The Conjuring. Lee Winnell's directorial debut was on the film Insidious Chapter 3. And do you want to guess the names of 2 of the producers on that movie?
And this is where you really f***ed up, Screen Rant, because references to other Invisible Man movies could have been discovered by anyone who's seen the movies. But this proves beyond any reasonable doubt that there's no way you made your video without watching my video. Because there are plenty of movies where people or objects get rocked by an invisible entity, so much so that I even made up a term for it on my channel. We call it air yeeting. My brain related to these moments in The Conjuring and Paranormal Activity because I was a teenager from 2007 to 2013 when the trend of paranormal horror movies was at its peak, and I was there to take those movies in. It's not like there's an interview with the director where he cites these moments as influences and we both saw the article, because no such interview exists. This is literally just my interpretation, my theory about why he might have gotten the ideas that he had because of the people that he was around at the time.
So if a massive company and channel like Screen Rant would steal from a slightly smaller channel like CZ's World, not credit him, and completely ignore being called out for it, I'm not too surprised that a small channel like Arakawa would steal from a larger channel simply to try and get his content out there. There's being inspired by a video and making your own version or interpretation, and then there's blatantly stealing someone's video and passing it off as your own, and this ain't the way to go about it. Subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one. Fuck this guy.